Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Nick. This is MSFS Flight Plans, and around here we are on a mission to see if the world really can be safe through simming, one incredible flight at a time. If you saw our last trip to Ethiopia, and you definitely should check that out if you haven't, you know we got to see the possible location of the Ark of the Covenant. Well, I came down with a nasty case of architis during that trip and figured we'd better see where the other Ark might be hiding before I recovered. So today we are in eastern Turkey, flying out to see Mount Ararat, and then we're going to cross over the border to land in Armenia, all within a flight plan of just over 100 miles. And we've also got an ILS approach at our destination, so we'll give that a shot too. But since there isn't a whole lot to talk about along the way other than the mountain, I figured we'd knock off a few minutes by speeding along in the 500 here by FSReborn, which is an indisputably awesome plane. So let's get in and fire up. I did have to pull out my note cards with this one because it's been a while since we've been in it, but it's pretty quick to start up. Okay, so battery and then the fuel pump and ignition to manual. That's easy enough. Battery. And then I think we just hit the starter. Alright, so we need to see when this gets up to 13 on our NG, then we can go ahead and crank this bad boy up. Good to go. Okay, so after that gets running up, we need to switch the generator and alternator on, and the fuel pump to auto and ignition off. Okay, so far so good. Avionics on, MFD on, and then adjust the trim, alright? Everything's going good so far. Alright, let that guy get going, and the trim needs to be set to the rudder trim to about 3 here. Because we got a lot of torque in this baby. One more. There we go. Looks good. Alright, and the bleed air and the control for the pressurization, that's good. Bring our yoke back. And let's go ahead and get our transponder set to on. Okay, let's take a look at the map real quick. Just so you can see where we are and where we're going. Alright, so here's Iran over there. We've been out there fairly recently. And we're way up here. Originally I was going to leave from Iran, but the flight was just a little bit too long, so we're going to leave from Iğdır, which is actually in Turkey, and I think you pronounce that Iğdır. I saw an online pronunciation for that, but it does not look like that, so I'm just going to keep saying Iğdır and Americanize that. So here's our airport right here. We're going to fly by Iğdır on up to the top of Mount Ararat, cut between this one and a little mountain called Lesser Ararat. I'll tell you all about that. Then come right down the side here, start descending, because we need to get to about 7,000 feet before we get to the capital of Armenia. And here's the border right here. So we're going to come right across here, check out a neat little fort, and then the airport is... Where are you, airport? Right here. And the ILS approach has us coming around this way, coming right across the top of the airport to catch their VOR for a transition point. And then we'll come around this way. The sim says the whole flight should be about 33 minutes, so this could be a pretty quick one, which is perfectly fine with me because, again, there's not a whole lot to talk about out here. Okay, I think we're ready to taxi. Let me just check real quick. Okay, so once we get to the end of the runway, we will do a couple more checks, and then we'll be good to go. Our altitude we're going to get up to is 16,000 feet to see as much as we can of the top of Ararat. We're just going to barely make it by the time we get out there. So I'm just setting that real quick on my external hardware, just because it takes forever to do it in the sim. And 13, 15, oh, we overshot it a little bit there. 16,000, good to go. I turned the live weather off because I could not get the winds right for our approach and takeoff, so we're just going to go ahead and go with the high cloud setting and no wind, because for some reason, even with just a little bit of turbulence, the plane was shaking around like crazy. So we don't want to deal with that. Alright, parking brake off. And we're moving. No add-ons available that I could find anywhere out here. Not the airports, no POIs, no nothing. But it's going to look pretty good. I do have the latest Bing version of the map enhancement, which does help a lot. So once again, getting a lot of use out of that thing. The terrain is going to look pretty good. The town, the structures are going to look pretty good. Really good, as a matter of fact. The mountain's going to look good. On this side of the mountain, and there it is over there, there's one spot that has a big cloud and shadow that got printed on it, so I've drawn this flight plan out to fly directly over the top of that. We might catch just a little glimpse of it as we're coming around. Other than that, everything looks really good. And Chet's with us again. I really miss that guy. I'm serious. When he's not with me, I just start to feel a little bit lonely. I'm not kidding when I say that. It's nice just to have someone, even if it's just a virtual Chet. It makes me feel a little bit more secure. So our departure airport today is Iğdır Airport, which is only about 2 miles south of the Armenian border and roughly 6 miles to the west of the town of Iğdır. And it's a fairly new strip, opening in 2012, but despite being in what appears to be a fairly remote location, they get a decent amount of traffic. I read they logged about 350,000 passengers in 2023. So I don't think there's much else out here as far as large strips, and this one is pretty long. I think it's 12,000 feet, so we got plenty of space out here. We'll just get down to the end and turn around here. And really, I don't think we need to go all the way to the runway because this thing is just huge. So I'm just going to shorten this up a little bit, and I'll turn around right here just to save us a little bit of time. If you get too far off this track, which as always will be included in the video description, you will get some clouds that got printed on the landscape other than the big one by the mountain that we're going to fly over. So I would try to stick to this one. If you want to see the best of the best, and again, put that latest Bing map in the map enhancement if you want to look just like this. It's not too bad with the default, but there's a few areas that don't look real great. So I would encourage you to do it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do these final checks here. Fuel pump and ignition to manual for takeoff. And shut that. Landing light on. And we'll get our transponder set to altitude mode. And we'll back that up because we need to change our CDI once we get to programming that procedure for the approach. 1 notch of flaps. And everything else, I believe, is good to go. So Chet, if you're ready, let's go and do this. He's been so excited about this flight. So this thing will definitely overpower pretty quick. I'm just watching our gauge over there on the top left of our MFD. Try to keep that under 13,000 or 1,300. And then it won't give me any warnings and alerts. We're moving. So the altitude here is 3,100. Not too high. And you're going to need something that can climb like crazy unless you don't want to see the top of the mountain. So we're going to initially climb at 2,000 feet a minute. See how we do. Gears up. And we'll come out here a little bit before we bring the flaps all the way in. Our flap 1 speed is 168, so we got a little bandwidth there. Alright, flaps up, and we'll kick the autopilot on at the end of the runway here. I'm going to trim up just a little bit because we're a little bit nose heavy. Alright, autopilot on. And again, we're going to climb at 2,000 feet a minute for as long as we can. And I don't think we'll be able to do it all the way. We'll see. So some of the fields out here are a little bit flat as far as the vegetation rows and things like that, and because we're using the map enhancement, as I was complaining about in that Ethiopia flight, I don't want to tweak the coloration, but some parts out here look pretty green. Once we get closer to the Armenian side, it'll look a little bit more natural. But all these mountains look really good out here. We've been seeing some great mountains lately. So just right over here, you can start to see the town of Iğdır, which, like everything else in this part of the world, has been around for a very long time. The history of the region was too complicated to hold my interest for more than a few minutes, but being so close to Russia, it was the location of a good bit of bloodshed between them and the Turks, and the poor citizens down here that got caught up in the middle of it. That looks like an odd feature, doesn't it? A whole mountain sticking up there, but that's fun to plow. During the 19th and 20th century, but there's been a lot of battling out here for about as long back as the history goes. But one thing that did pique my interest is a big memorial tower they erected on the other side of the town, which unfortunately you cannot see in the sim. I think it would probably be out in this vicinity over here. It's like a big spire that goes up in the air. It's called the Iğdır Genocide Memorial, and they have a museum associated with it too. But when I started looking into it, at least according to what Wikipedia was saying, they said that the stated purpose of the site is to commemorate massacres and persecution committed by Armenians during World War I. And that sounds like a perfectly acceptable reason to build a memorial, but apparently what really happened was precisely the opposite. It was the Turks who were massacring everyone, not the Armenians. And it sounds like everyone out here is completely aware of that reality. So how they managed to pull that off is completely beyond me. And it might even be a bit comical if it wasn't so tragic. Yeah, so I think it would probably be right around this vicinity, because it's right at those crossroads over there. But can you imagine seeing something like that? It's not like it was a footnote in a history book or a little plaque somewhere. It's a massive 141-foot tower with a huge museum at the bottom of it. I'd love to know how many visitors they get each year. I bet most of them aren't Armenian, though. Okay, let's just watch that airspeed. I'm going to go ahead and bring it down now to 1,500 feet a minute, which will probably still get us there in time, I think. And let's check out some of the other cameras I have set up just to see how everything looks around us. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful. You can see off in the distance there, see some of those clouds on the landscape. So we won't spend a lot of time on this side of the plane because we won't see that out of the other side of the plane, but look at all the terrain relief. Again, just absolutely incredible. And that city looks pretty realistic. Colors look good. Most of the fields look really good. Quite nice indeed. Okay, so on to Mount Ararat. Let's hit the geology first, and then we'll get to the juicy stuff. This thing is what is known as a compound volcano, which basically means there are multiple cone formations around a single volcanic core. And they're somewhat rare, but we've got quite a few of them out in the western U.S. around New Mexico and Colorado. I think there might even be a couple out in California as well. Some spots, some of these sites I went to said that this thing is extinct. Some said they're dormant, said that it's dormant, and I think that's probably accurate because it has erupted as recently as 1840. So usually when they say extinct, it's been like several thousands of years, if not millions, so, you know, you can never trust what you read on the internet. Heck, I don't even know if it really erupted in 1840, but that's what the internet said. And as you'll see in a minute, there are actually two mountains up here. The big one is called Greater Ararat. That's the one we see right here in front of us, which tops out at just under 17,000 feet. And Lesser Ararat, or Little Ararat, depending on where you're looking, is on the other side, and that one's about 4,000 feet shorter. We're going to come right between the two of them. Look at this stuff out here. That looks just fantastic. Really does look just great. But other than being a very cool-looking mountain, both in real life and in the sim, the reason so many people recognize the name of Ararat is, of course, due to the biblical lore surrounding this location. So first of all, for anyone who's not up to snuff on your Bible trivia, let's start with the question of why people think the Ark is up here in the first place. I know you guys might be thinking, come on, Nick, everybody knows about that story, but the older I get, the more I'm finding that a lot of people don't know the details of stories like that, so we'll talk about it for just a minute. In the flood narrative in the book of Genesis, it was said to have run ashore, the Ark that is, in the mountains of Ararat as the water was receding. One potential problem with that, assuming the Ark story is true in the first place, is that there was nothing called Mount Ararat back then. The mountains of Ararat was just a term used to describe this general region, which extends roughly probably 100 miles in every direction, except to the southwest. It's a little bit shorter. So granted, this is certainly one of the highest points around here, maybe the highest in that whole region. But there are certainly plenty of other mountains. In fact, there's quite a few reports from ancient historians who claim that the locals had identified other mountains where the Ark ruins could still be visited. Hundreds and hundreds of years ago, there haven't been any recent... Well, there have been recent reports like that. I'll tell you about that in a minute. I don't think any of those guys were actually serious, though. They tried to be taken seriously. But nobody ever found anything that could be verified as a legit relic. Lots and lots of stories of people seeing the boat, seeing timbers of the boat, seeing the whole thing, seeing it broken in half, climbing on top of it. But no one has been able to produce anything that can be verified as legit. But as this area became more accessible to the Western world, particularly in the 1940s and later, explorers and treasure hunters started coming out here to try to strike it rich. And since then, all kinds of people have claimed to have found all kinds of things believed to be pieces of the Ark. Again, all of which have thus been discredited or considered dubious enough to warrant extreme suspicion. Alright, airspeed looks good. Everything's looking good. Around 1960, a group out here found a big lump that looks a lot like the shape of a boat. You may have even seen pictures of it, and there's certainly been plenty of documentaries about it. That was roughly the dimensions of the Ark, and despite it proving to be nothing more than a rock formation, that didn't stop the locals from building a museum at the site. Because anything shaped like a big boat out here means big money. Look how good that looks. Man, once again, just flawless. Unbelievable. Incredible. In just a minute, we're going to see Lesser Ararat on the other side of it here. And then I'll need to watch my airspeed as we flatten out. I'll show you where that thing is that they thought might be the Ark. That's a rock formation. It's nowhere near this mountain, actually. It's about 20 miles south of here. Not even on an elevated spot, but they built a museum there, and you can see it in the satellite map, so we'll take a look at it. But at the end of the day, most serious scientists who are at least open to the possibility that there could have been an ancient wooden boat up here at some point in the last 10,000 years think that it would have probably been destroyed by the elements and eruptions from these mountains if it was on this one, because there has been a decent amount of volcanic activity up here over that time span. Oh, look, that looks like an Ark. What do you think, Chet? You see that? That might be it. Look at that. That's kind of what the rock formation looks like, actually. That one's just... the other thing's flat. That one's not flat. It's leaning on the side. All right, Chet. Let's see if we can get permission to come out here and dig that thing. What do you think? Look at that grin. He loves it. He's got his fedora and bullwhip in the back. Thinks he's Indiana Jones. But unfortunately, so many, if not all, of the people who have come up here so far and claim to have found something turned out to be hucksters. Which has kind of draped the whole subject in a stigma of chicanery, discouraging legitimate research from people who don't want to get caught up in all that. And apparently the local government isn't very accommodating to folks trying to get up here, so for now, the only people happy that it hasn't been confirmed or discredited are the documentary filmmakers. And I don't really mind that. Every time a new one comes out, I always enjoy witnessing all the wild speculation. Look how good that looks! Oh, love it. Let's hop in the back, see if we get any better view. Not much better. How about this side? Ooh, look at the coloration of that sand down there. Beautiful. Yep, we're past all those clouds now too. That, boy, what a sight that is. That is gorgeous. Incredible. I love when you can see like the little streams running down the side of that. Look at that. Just amazing. Only thing that might not be totally lifelike, and I don't know because it's pretty close. That's a pretty sharp ridge on that. It got a little bit of the rounding treatment, it looks like, but heck, it may look like that in real life. I haven't taken a good close-up look at it. Well, let's take a peek at the other little guy. There he is. That looks good too. Just fantastic. Okay, I'm going to keep the throttles here, but I need to pull back because we're going to start coming down once we get around the other side of it. And I think I saw something. Initially, I was coming up from Iran, and I saw something on the other side. I don't think we're going to see it because it's right on the other side of this peak. It looks like a big radar dish, or maybe a dome where there's a radar underneath it. Yeah, I don't think we're going to see it. It's on the other side. So I don't know if that's something real out there or not. Okay. Nope, that's not it. I thought I might be able to see it. What a beaut. That is just stunning. Absolutely love it. Okay, I'm only going to point out the cloudy, shadowy area just so you'll know to look away when you fly out here by yourself next time. Look, that looks like an old vent right there. Look at that. Maybe even some lava flows coming off of that. Let's hop outside real quick. Yep, that looks amazing. There's the thumbnail right there. That is incredible. Just incredible. Look at the details on the top of that thing. And that plane don't look too shabby either. Love it. You know what? We might even get... we may not see that cloudy spot. It's right behind our pillar right now. Wow, I may have just nailed it with this flight plan. No, I don't think we're going to see it. That's great. So I think the first time that anyone climbed to the top of this thing was around 1860, maybe 1862. So fairly recently on the grand scheme of things, but you gotta think that some of the locals, if they've been venerating this thing for that long, have climbed up to the top of it. Ooh, we got a little bit of popping there. Looks like a little ice sheet or something up there. Boy, from this close, a mountain looking that good, really, really impressive. Unlike Kilimanjaro, which is not impressive at all. You know, I need to get out there and check that out with one of the map enhancements, because that looks pretty rough in the sim. Alright, here's that bad area right here. But we're going to come right over it, so you really won't catch too much of it at all. Okay, so let's just reset this for 7,000 feet, because that's where we need to be at when we first catch that transition point. I'm again dialing it down with my external stuff here. 12,000. And then we'll go ahead and set up our procedure, and I'll tell you about the capital of Armenia, which we're going to cross into the border of here in just a minute. And I know I probably don't need to because I don't have the live weather, but I'll check the barrow again just because it's a force of habit. Okay, so 7,000 feet. And we'll start our descent, let's just say at 1,000 feet a minute. I think that'll be fine. And I don't have to worry so much about overspeeding. One more look at her. Yeah, this area right here is the only bad spot. Everything else around there looks great. Just got a little bit of a shadow printed on there. But absolutely beautiful. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our procedure set up here. That's a little bit far away. I hope I can see that. Alright, select approach. Yep. Visual. Only 2 approaches? Well, I know we have an ILS on this one, so, because when I came in from Iran, I was using it. But then again, I was using the 850 in that too. Thank you, ma'am. I hear you. Appreciate it. Nice to have that little warning so I don't wreck the plane. Okay, so what we're going to do instead, since it's obviously not in here, let me just cycle through there. Yeah, it's not in there. Okay, so let's get out of there. Back it all the way up. Let me pull up the little map over here and Navigraph. Okay, so our frequency is going to be 108.1. I'll just go ahead and program that in because this flight plan is drawn to hit the feather. So 108.1. 108.1. Oh, gotta go the other direction, I guess. Okay, that's fine. And we'll go ahead and just lock that in, and then we'll switch over to the localizer once we get closer. Alright, 108.1, we should be good. Airspeed seems to be under control. All that's going great. Very good. Check the barrel again because I can't help myself. So we're probably... let me look back at the map here. Alright, we got another probably 10 miles before we cross into Armenia, where we're going to encounter the city of Yerevan. I think that's how you say that, which also happens to be the capital and the largest city in Armenia. And not only that, but it is also one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. with a confirmed human history going all the way back to at least 3,200 BC. They almost got wiped out several times. As you'll hear in a minute, lots of invaders. Look at this terrain down here. That's interesting, huh? I wonder if that was created by lava flows. Kind of looks like it, doesn't it? Very cool. Beautiful. And I read that today they got about 1 million people down here. Maybe a little bit over that, which is 35% of the population of the whole country. So a lot of people out there. And as we come around the southern end of the city, we're going to see the ruins of Iğdır Fortress. And I have no idea if I'm saying that right or not. Boy, they got some wild spelling and sounding names out here. But that thing was built in 782 BC. And it actually looks pretty good in the sim. It's not huge, of course, but we will be able to see it, and even the features of it. But the completion of that place marked the city's foundation, making it roughly 30 years older than Rome, which I thought was fascinating. And over the last 2,000 years, this area has been in near constant turmoil, unfortunately for everyone out here, being conquered and controlled at various times by the Persians, Arabs, Byzantines, or Byzantines if you prefer, Mongols, Turks, Ottomans, and Russians. I think I saw the Iranians in there, but they may be lumped in with the Persians, along with several other factions for shorter durations. So lots and lots of turmoil out here. And there's some speculation that the city's name may also be of biblical origin. And though I couldn't find it in a Bible word search, which I definitely tried to do, Noah is purported to have exclaimed Yerevan as the waters were receding, which in Armenian translates roughly to behold, it appears. And man, when I was trying to find some fun facts about this place, I found all kinds of sites, of course, dedicated to that. And I was reading some of that stuff, and I was like, no way, that can't be right. And as I was looking through it, there was one site that had 33 fun facts about Yerevan. And I don't think I found a single one that appeared to be confirmable and legit. So, God, just so disappointing. Always got to be careful what you read on the internet. And though we won't really be able to tell it here in the sim, and I did look, a lot of the buildings out here are pinkish in color, thanks to a particular type of volcanic stone used to build a lot of them. And I read that color is amplified during the sunset hours, giving Yerevan the nickname Pink City. And even though it's way too far out of the way for this trip, about 12, maybe 15 miles north of the airport, there's an old abandoned radio telescope, like the kind that's built into the ground, that was in use for only 4 years, from 1986 to 1990. Although I think they tried to restart it up again in 2012, but they didn't do it. And it's pretty big, too. The diameter is 177 feet, so I'm sure you could see it in the sim. I put a bookmark on it, and I'll show you where it is when we're done, in case you want to fly up there and check it out. Probably looks pretty cool. In fact, it looks very cool. I've seen a lot of big radio telescopes in the ground, and that one looks pretty neat. Not as big as that one out in Puerto Rico, which is also being dismantled if it hasn't already been. Alright, airspeed's looking good. Altitude's looking good. I think we're going to hit 7,000 by the time we need to, so everything is just fine so far. Very good. And I think that radio satellite was even featured on an episode of Mysteries of the Abandoned, one of my favorite shows, which probably comes as a surprise to no one. Love abandoned things. And I know you do too, Chet, don't you? Yeah, you do. Of course you do. We all do. And there's a YouTube site, I'll just mention it while I'm thinking about it, because whenever you find an interesting YouTube site, sometimes it's worth mentioning. Because sometimes you'll get a channel like this one that you've never heard of before, you finally decide to click on something and it winds up being amazing. But there's one called the Adventure Twins, and all they do is some very, very dangerous exploration of all kinds of abandoned places. I can't get enough of it. Not great as far as commentary goes, but the production quality is great, and they check out some really neat places. So the Adventure Twins, I think is what that's called, if you feel like searching around for a cool new YouTube channel. We're getting up in the yellow there, so I'm going to pull the throttle back just a little bit more. And then we'll start looking for this palace as we come around here. But lastly, before we move too far from the subject of religion, we just saw a really early adopter of Christianity with the Axumites on our Ethiopia flight. Well, nobody can beat Armenia. It was the first country in the world to adopt it as the state religion in 301 AD. And it also claims to have the first cathedral ever built, although it's not out here. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the name of the cathedral or the town that it's in, but that was completed in 303. So very early, and it's still standing. I saw pictures of it. How's that terrain look? Buildings look okay. Ground features are looking a little bit flat, but that's fine. The city overall looks pretty good. Ooh, they got a little power plant down there. You see some cooling towers. And I read that church also claims that they have the Holy Spirit relic, the Spear of Destiny, which is what was stabbed into the side of Jesus at the crucifixion. The only problem with that is that 4 other churches also claim to have the same thing. And if I was a betting man, I'd say that none of them are real. Such is the world of relics. But man, I just can't help myself when it comes to those things. I find all the stories fascinating. I'd really like to find a book that just details all of the major relics that are out there and the history behind them. And most of them are multiples of the exact same thing all over the place, but I always find it interesting. Okay, so here is where the fortress is going to be, which again, just crazy. That was the whole city at one time. Right there. We'll see as we're coming around here, we'll get a pretty good view of it. And then once we do that, we'll get to our announcements real quick, and then I have an incredible story to tell you guys. An aviation story. A personal one, too. A little slice of life story. How are we doing on altitude? Oh yeah, we'll definitely hit it in time. That was perfect. So once you get around the, I guess, the eastern side of Ararat, that's when I would start coming down. We did 1,000 feet a minute from 16,000. That'll get you about where you need to be at just the right time, I think. And then once we cross over the airport, we need to get down to 5,100, and then we'll just hope that we can pick up that ILS signal. I hope they didn't discontinue it, but Navigraph had it in there, and so did little NavMap. It's just not in this plane for some reason. Alright, where's the fort? Okay, here it is. It's going to be right here. You might even be able to see some of the relief of the little walls and stuff they have out there. And I don't know if I was reading it correctly or not, but I think on this side of the border they also have an Armenian genocide memorial and museum. Maybe to contradict everything that's over on the one on the Turkish side. What a strange thing that is. I mean, if everyone knows that it's not legit, and they put all that money into it and build that huge thing up, like, who's going out there to see that? Unless you're being required to go out there at gunpoint or something. But Turkey didn't really strike me as the kind of country that would do that, but maybe they just hate the Armenians that much. Look at that. There it is right there. There it is. So around 782 BC? Is that what I said on that? That was it. So again, if people were out here way, way, way before that, I guess that was when the foundation of the city happened, which makes it older than Rome, apparently. That's it. Yeah, you can see the relief on the walls. Look at that. Beautiful. This must be a big cemetery, because it looks an awful lot like a cemetery, although it is flat. There's one airport. That's not the one we're coming into. It's going to be this one. So we're going to cross right over this end of it where the VOR is, apparently, because that's going to be our transition point, and then just come right up here and come back around. Okay, so our announcements real quick. As I mentioned earlier, if you want to take this flight just like we are, it has been meticulously mapped out to give you all the very best views of everything. The timing is just right. That link will be included in the video description. You can pull it into little NavMap if you don't know how to use little NavMap, or pull it into it. Then there is a very brief tutorial in our how-to section. Check it out. You'll be up and running in no time. Along with that, also in the video description, you'll find the link to our Discord server, where you can go in there and join an incredible community. And I just checked our numbers on that. I thought it was in the low 80s. I think we're at like 90 now. Which is, ooh, that doesn't look good, does it? That stadium looks a little bit like a wet noodle. But that's a big place. So once you get on the Discord server, along with the incredible conversations, you can also participate in our group flights. We've got another one coming up, probably going to be next Thursday night. That seems to be the time that we do all those. Probably 9 o'clock Eastern time. It is going to be out in Colorado. On that last flight, I mistakenly said California, even though I knew it was Colorado. But I've been helping our member who lives out there build an incredible flight plan. It might be one of the best ones we've done so far. It's out there over the Rockies. We're going to be leaving from Grand Junction, heading out to Telluride, which is an incredible airport to take off and land from. Land at. And then we'll continue going east to Salida over the mountains. So it can either be 60 minutes or 90 minutes if you have enough time. The 90-minute flight's really cool. But if you want to dump out a little bit early, there's a town you'll be able to stop at along the way. I'm just getting our altitude reset for 5,100. And then we'll start that descent. And we won't adjust the throttles because I never pulled them back up anyway. Alright, the timing of that should be good. So when we get in there, if you've never done a group flight before, don't worry about it. Super, super easy. We don't do all... This isn't like hardcore piloting and all that, so even if you don't feel like you're that good of a pilot yet in the sim, come along. It's all about the conversation and the sights. And we're going to be taking turboprops. In fact, I'll probably take this one, so you'll need something that can climb really well, especially leaving out of Telluride. But we'll hop in there about 15 minutes early, so before about 8:45 Eastern time on Thursday night. Get everybody set up, make sure we're all on the same server and all that stuff. Take off and enjoy a wonderful flight. So hop in there, check that out if you'd like to. If you don't mind getting in there ahead of time just so I can get a head count, just hop on free chat anywhere else, because I always check all the conversations going on there. Just let us know if you plan on attending that. So far we've always had 10 or less, which I think again is just a great number, because then we're not stepping all over each other, so I don't have to worry about it getting too crowded at this point. And then also, of course, you can get in our quarterly flight plan recommendation competition. We are almost at the end of this quarter, and we have a full docket, so anything suggested at this point I might set up for next quarter, just so I don't have to shave too many off. But if there's a spot you know of that we just have got to check out, well, I want to hear all about it. I want to see the amazing places of the world that I never would have thought to go to. That Ethiopia flight was a recommendation. We've got at least 4 of them for the last quarter. So once we wrap it up, which again will probably be in a couple weeks, I will post the links to all of the flights that made the cut on our community tab in YouTube. Then we'll vote as a sim community. I'll put a little poll up there, and the winner gets a $50 gift card to the sim vendor of your choice, which is awesome. Both the flight recommendations and winning $50. So check it out. And lastly, as far as where we're heading next, I don't know, but I want to see your hometown. I want to show the world the place that made you. I don't care how small it is. I don't care how insignificant you think it is. Just drop me a line. Let me know where you're from. I'll check it out. I love finding interesting things about podunk little places. Absolutely love it. So there's your chance to brag about where you're from. Alright, so that's probably about 5 miles. Then we'll come around. We'll keep our airspeed up. Let me check the barrel one more time. That's good to go. And then we'll try to get on that localizer. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so my personal story. You guys on Discord already know this, but last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, someone dropped me a line on YouTube and said they live here in Jacksonville, and they just got their CFI certificate and their license for single engine. Right now, he's working on his multi-engine, which he'll have in a couple weeks. But he lives literally right around the corner from me, probably 2 or 3 miles from my house. And he said, I'd like to take you up flying sometime. And I said, oh my gosh, that would be absolutely incredible. So I went out and met with him personally today down at the airfield. Got to take a little tour. He's the place he's getting his flight lessons from. Showed me around the hangars, looked at some of the planes. So as you can imagine, I am literally beside myself. I cannot wait to do that. That will be the first time I have ever flown in a small aircraft, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. And that might just be the catalyst I need to go ahead and get my PPL. We'll see. Gotta wait for some of these kids to get out of the house. Time constraints are the big issue right now for me. But it was cool, really cool. We looked at a 172. They had a vintage King Air out there that looked like, I didn't even know they made King Airs. It looked like that was a stubby little thing. And I saw an Icon in real life. I didn't think I'd ever seen one of those. The guy pulled it out of his hangar too while we were out there. Incredible. That's the one that looks like a jet ski with a wing on it. Really, really cool. So I'll keep you guys posted on all that, but I can't wait to do it. And it's crazy. Once you get up close, I'm sure many of you have already seen the inside of a 172, but man, is that a tight little squeeze in that sucker. And I'm not a really small guy either. That'll be interesting to jam myself into one of those. See, these fields look good, and the green doesn't look so incredibly dark like it did on the Turkish side. Looks pretty good. Okay, so let's just get ahead of all this here. We are going to be gear down and flaps 1 at 168, and then what is flaps 2? I think it's 130. 135, okay, so I just need to keep that in mind, and then 118 for full flaps, and our approach speed is going to be 85 knots. Alright, so once we come around this, just to make sure we can catch that localizer and we don't start doing pirouettes out here, I'll wait till I'm all the way on the runway heading, and then we'll switch that thing over, and we'll be good. What'd you think, chat? You liked it? Yep. When you guys see the formation that they thought might be the Ark, I mean, you just look at that and go, come on, guys. And then they put a museum next to it, and you say, come on, guys, again. No wonder nobody takes it seriously. So now we have seen where the Ark of Kentucky is. We took a flight out there to see the replica Ark. We got a nice look at that thing. We took that helicopter out there. And then we just saw where the Ark of the Covenant may be. Let's see, we've seen Jerusalem, so we saw where the Ark was at some point. And now we've seen where the other Ark may or may not be. Where else can we go to find Arks? Maybe the Arc de Triomphe? Where's that out in Paris? Go check that one out. Okay, coming on around here. And then let's see, we'll need to come down. No, we'll be good. So at 5,100 feet, we should be good to catch the glide slope. And I think I'm going to get maybe up to this waypoint right here before we flip that thing over. So 2024 on our doorstep, guys, and I am just really debating about what to do. A part of me really wants to wait a little bit to see the feedback from it, because if people are having problems with it, which they probably will initially, just because it's a new release and it's very, very different from what we have now. The main issue that I've got is my computer, which is not a small or unpowerful or low hard drive space computer, is maxed out, and the only thing I have on this thing is the sim, and everything that comes along with that. Alright, so let's try switching this over real quick here. CDI to localizer, boom. And I'm not going to turn the approach on yet until we get closer to that glide slope coming on down. So I don't want to pull this sim completely off and stick 2024 in and then realize that it needs a few months to sort out the kinks because then I'd have to reinstall this one, so I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I just take a month off or just keep loading up 2020 flights for a while. We'll see. And I was thinking about kind of rebuilding my computer too. Alright, approach mode on. We got it. We got the lock. Very good. Start bringing that airspeed down. We need to be at 168 to get the gears down. And in addition to wanting to rebuild my computer, I'm kind of waiting to see if the 5090s will come out pretty soon. I'm wanting to get a VR headset. So all of these things on my Christmas list. And now we got the port strike, so who knows if we'll get any of it. We'll see how that goes. Or if we'll survive the election. That's always kind of a wild card. Alright, we gotta slow way down. Way, way down.
Check gear.
Yep, they're coming. They're coming. Oh, we're getting close. I have to get it out. We're not going to slow down enough. Hopefully they will stay attached to the fuselage. Now we can start bringing her down. Boy, that is a beautiful scene right there, isn't it? Just gorgeous. Great area. Great part of the world. Again. Alright, I've got the throttle almost cut. We need to get down to 135 before we get the second notch of flaps out. Alright, it's coming down. Everything's going good. So once we get down there, I will give you a quick satellite image tour on little NavMap. And then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I'm going to be out of town this weekend, so there may be a little bit of a delay before our next flight. I got to drive down to South Florida to visit with my dad and a aunt that's coming into town. So I'll start working on our next flight out then. In the meantime, check out some of our older videos, if you'd like, if you haven't seen a lot of them. And tell me where you're from. Tell me the hometown. We'll set up a hometown flight. And we got to fly another helicopter soon. I haven't done that in a while. I'm afraid I'm going to forget how to do it. I don't know if we're going to hit 118 by the time we get to the runway. We'll see. If I can get down real quick, I'm going to hit that second taxiway because the other one is way down there in the middle of the runway, which is a pretty good haul. Alright. So we have just had a burst of new members on the YouTube channel, which is very, very exciting to me. As always, I encourage you to drop a line and say hi. As I mentioned many times, I am not doing this for the money because there isn't much money to be made from doing this. So the thing that fuels me is hearing from you guys. Tell me you had a good time. Tell me you learned something new. Tried one of the flights. I love it all. That's what drives me. Don't be a stranger. Okay, come on in. Come on in. And I have decided, by the way, because I've talked about the last several flights, that I am going to go ahead and upload that last helicopter exercise out of Victoria Falls, and here's the reason why I want to do it. It's going to be terrible because I'm so bad at doing it. I would like to see, I know a lot of you guys that have your own HeliSim YouTube channels, watch this channel. I want to see you guys try it, if you're brave enough to do it, and for two reasons. One, if you're terrible at doing it also, that will encourage me. And if you're great at doing it, that'll also encourage me. It'll show that if I just put enough practice in, maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to get that good someday. So either way, I'd love to see some of you guys that are much better than me. I know some of you can do it because I've seen one of our members do it. Yes, Golf, I'm talking to you. Let's show everyone that can be done. Give us something to shoot for. Boy, this plane is nice and smooth on these approaches. I love it. Of course, we don't have any wind either. Oh, we're not going to hit that taxiway. No, we're not going to make it. So I'm just going to kind of cruise down the runway here a little bit. We'll keep some speed, bring the flaps up until we get to that next one, then we'll pull on off and check out a little NavMap. So where else in the world do I have kind of scoped out for us while we have a minute to kill? Tampa, I really want to go down there. I live so close to it, but it looks not that great in the sim, and the performance is horrendous out there. I don't know why, because North Central Florida is really good on performance and looks fantastic. If you saw that Ocala and Gainesville flight, that's some of the best areas I've seen in the sim, at least in Florida. I know I say that on every single flight, but I don't know what's up with Tampa. Miami looked good, of course. We had a little freeze there. Something going on in Central Florida. Orlando was okay. We took that flight, the Are We There Yet flight, but even that one was a little bit jittery. I wish Tampa looked better because that whole area is just beautiful out there by St. Pete and Clearwater and all that. Just incredible. But we're probably not going to fly it. We'll save that one for 2024, see if it looks any bit better than it does now, or at least performs better. Okay, so if we go to the right here, there's some GA parking. It'll only take a minute. We'll shut her down. Yeah, I'm definitely going to fly out to check out that radio telescope disc. Why are we getting so much stuttering here? This does not appear to be a modded up airport, and we really haven't had any for the rest of the flight. But I guess I'd rather have it now than we're out there looking at the mountain. Alright, I'm taking a left right here, and I don't see anyone out here to park us, so I guess we just park wherever the heck we want. And I also saw 2 new planes were released in the sim today. And I think both of them were GA, so that's great news. I haven't picked up a new plane in a while. Okay, so we're stopped. Parking brake on. And we'll pull this back. And just so our plane doesn't blow up, we'll go ahead and turn off the pressurization. And here comes a little nav map. One more look at Chet. Bye, Chet. See you next time. Hopefully. Alright, centering off, trail off. Alright, so there's not much that I actually bookmark. It's hard to miss the mountain, so there's that. There's where that is. But here's where that site is, where they said they thought they found the Ark. Okay, so look how far that is, and at what comparatively low elevation it is. It's called the Durapanar site. And here it is. They thought that this thing might be the Ark. And it turns out it's just a rock formation. Shocking, because that's exactly what it looks like. Especially when you're right there on the ground. I mean, talk about desperation. There's a little museum they built. Collect a little bit of money for tickets to come in there. Okay, so we came around this way, and I'll show you where that spot is that we flew over there. There's right there. See, there's where that shadow is. And then here's the other spot. And this is the Mapbox map, not the Bing one. So they must be sharing images. So you could barely see that. You could kind of see that shadow right there, but let's just say that was a little ice slick. Ooh, and look at this. They've got quite a few more vents out here. There's a couple there. There was a big one down here, too, I thought. I know we saw... No, we didn't see that one because it's on the other side of the plane. We caught this one right here. They got some more out this way. And let me just see if I can, once this depixelates... I don't see a radar dish or whatever I thought I saw up there last time. And it was elevated. I don't think it was any of this little ice pack stuff up here. But if you come up for some reason from the other side, take a look around the top of that. I think there was something up there. Okay, so when we came around this way into the city, and the only thing I really bookmarked out here was the fortress. Irabuni. That looked pretty close to that. It really did. And there was even some relief on those, which is extraordinarily rare for a default city that they would catch that, especially considering how awful that stadium looked. But that was it. That's how this whole town got started. And then finally, up here is the radio telescope. So this is about, if you want to try to find it, well, if you download the bookmark file, it'll be very easy. That'll also be included in the video description. So directly from the center of downtown, about 15 miles, up here by Bayrakan. Again, these names are just wild. Look at that thing. How sweet is that? Ooh, they might even have another older one up there. And obviously that's sticking way up in the air because it's got a huge shadow. That's very interesting. But I believe this whole thing is abandoned now. And you really can't... If you see a picture from the ground, it's got a very interesting looking... It looks like an inverted Epcot ball with those kind of geometric shapes on the inside of it. Very, very neat looking. So that's it, guys. That's Ararat. As always, learned all kinds of incredible things. I hope you did too. I hope you'll check the flight out. It's a lot of fun. Just remember, you got to be able to climb pretty quick to get out there from this airport if you want to get up to 16,000 feet. So just a quick reminder, 16,000 to get up here. Once you come around this side of it, if you're descending at 1,000 feet a minute, and assume you don't have a super tailwind, depending on just how fast you're going down, but we kind of had this thing maxed out. So we were going down with an indicated airspeed of about 230 maybe. We got down to 7,000 right about here. And the ILS, which worked no problem in my 850. I don't know what it was with this plane. Should you be able to get on it right here, you need to be at 7,000 here. And then once you get to about right here, you need to be at 5,100. So that's the plan for that if you want to do it. I'll be out of town this weekend. Check out some of our older flights. Hop on that Discord server. I hope to see some more of you guys next Thursday night for our group flight. And other than that, I cannot wait to see y'all again in the skies. Later.